Do you read when you're on the beach? Many people might think it odd to go away from home, far away, get to the beach, only to pull out a book or a Kindle and start reading on the beach. There's the pools, there's the ocean, there's all the events that you can have at a beachside. But I prefer reading on the beach. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Greg, and today I am doing the Beach Vacation Tag. It was created by Scott. Some other character is his channel. And this is a very simple tag. It has 6 prompts about what you may be reading at the beach or other sorts of beach entertainment. Now, these prompts come with a caveat. Some of them are limited or expansive in their answers. Some of the prompts you can only answer with a book. And some of the other prompts you can answer with book, movie, or comic. And this allows readers or watchers to expand their choices in case they're all booked out from other tags. So let's get this started. The first prompt, number 1, stranded. You are on a desert island for a week. You're going to get picked up. What one book are you taking with you? Book only prompt. I thought about this. If I know I'm going to be stranded on a desert island for a week with only one book, I want it to be a good book. A book that I've read before, and preferably a fairly long book. So I have chosen The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I originally read this book way back in the 90s when it was a relatively new novel. It is a medieval story about the creation of a cathedral. Now, to create a cathedral, it takes a generation. It does not happen overnight, and it was such a fascinating story. All the rich historical detail, and you get to know the characters as they start building this cathedral, and then some of the characters, of course, will die because this is a generational story. If you like historical fiction, if you like a thrilling tale, I can highly recommend The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Ken Follett later went on to write some sequels. He may have even written a prequel. I have not read any of the other books, but someday I do want to reread The Pillars of the Earth. It was that good. Number 2, Flip-Flop Friendships, or How I Learned to Love Crocs. A story with friendship at its core. Bonus, summer camp or travel, book, movie, or comic. I am picking This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger. This is a story that begins in the Depression. There are 2 orphaned boys, but all the orphanages for white children are full. So they are sent to an Indian orphanage, and they have to learn to contend with all the mean administrators of this orphanage. Some of them are very cruel. They are very racist towards the Indians. But these boys form a very firm friendship with each other, as brothers should, but they also form a friendship with a mute Indian and a little girl who may or may not have extraordinary powers. But one of the brothers accidentally kills one of the administrators of the orphanage, and they have to flee on the river. They steal a canoe, and they are going on a long trip to St. Louis, where they think they will find an aunt that will take them in. And this is a fabulous story. I love Depression-era stories. Don't ask me why. I just do. And as these 4 children, because they're all underage at this time, travel along the river, they meet people, they have extraordinary adventures. They meet a charlatan woman preacher. Or is she a charlatan? You'll have to figure that out. They also meet a rattlesnake named Lucifer. Of course a rattlesnake should be called Lucifer. This was a fun book. It's not high literature by any measure, but it is a fun adventure story. set in the Great Depression. Prompt number 3. What book, movie, or comic burned you with hype but ended up disappointing you? I am going to go with the movie Terrifier, the first Terrifier. I heard talk about this horror movie, how gruesome and intelligent and fantastic it was. It was reinventing the slasher movie. Everyone said so. And it had a killer clown named Art. And who doesn't love a killer clown? Of course, all clowns should be killers. And so I eventually watched this movie earlier in the year, and I was getting ready for one of the great horror experiences, or great horror movie experiences of my lifetime. And you know, Terrifier met the standards of being better than your average slasher. The interpretation of Art the Clown was really well done. Usually you don't get a lot of interpretation of slasher killers, but Art, the killer clown, without ever saying a word, was magnificently expressive. I have heard that the actor who played the part was trained as a mime, and it shows. The character was menacing, just looking at him, his expressions, his evil grin. But ultimately, it really was just an ordinary slasher movie. A little more gruesome than most slasher movies, but that's really all it had for it. A great performance by the actor playing the killer clown, and a little bit of extra gore. Not much else. I would not even call it a great horror movie. I would call it just a good horror movie. Now, when you're talking about slasher movies, getting above that good stage is really rather difficult, in my opinion. Even the classics like Halloween or Friday the 13th really don't say anything extraordinary, and neither did Terrifier. Number 4, Sunburn and Secrets. Pick a twisty, juicy thriller or mystery, perfect for a hot day. Book, movie, or comic. I'm going with Natchez Burning by Greg Iles. This is part historical mystery, part thriller, and just part adventure. It starts off a little bit in the 1960s, where there are some rather brutal racial murders. It then skips to the early aughts. There is the main character, Penn Cage. He is the mayor of this city called Natchez. Now, this technically is the the third book in a series, but you do not have to read the first 2 books in the series to enjoy this book. I did read the first book, but not the second. Well, anyway, back to this story. Penn Cage and his fiancée, they're learning a little bit about the history of Natchez, because there are some very evil white supremacists. They are an offshoot of the KKK, an extreme offshoot of the KKK. But an event happens in Natchez. Penn Cage's father is the beloved town doctor, and his old fling, a black nurse who assisted him back in the 60s when there was a lot of these early racial troubles, has come to Natchez to die of cancer. Penn Cage's father is accused of assisting her suicide, or maybe even murdering her. And this event triggers another series of events, where events from the past are coming to the future, and these old KKK, extreme white supremacists, don't want that to come to the future. They want that all hidden in the past. And it all comes together as a thrilling mystery story. It is the first in the Natchez Burning trilogy, and while this is the first, my favorite of the trilogy, the other 2 books, The Bone Tree and Mississippi Blood, are excellent as well. Prompt number 5, Beach Book Bag or Bog Bag? What's your go-to lightweight, fast-paced read for the beach? Book or comic? I don't know if this is lightweight, but it is certainly fast-paced and a great thrill. I'm picking Fatherland by Robert Harris. This is an historical murder mystery. It is set in the 60s in Germany. But in this Germany, Hitler won World War II. Hitler is still in power, even though he is a very old man. There is a police investigator, and he is assigned to look at a dead body that is found floating in a river. The dead body belongs to someone who was once very high up in the Nazi Party. But then it becomes clear that the Nazi Party doesn't want this murder investigated. But the main character, the police investigator, he does something really, really stupid, especially if you're running in a Nazi-ruled Germany. He investigates the murder. Only bad things can ensue from there. And this works, number one, as just a good murder mystery. It also works out as a good historical alternate history because Robert Harris creates this vivid world of the Nazi-run Germany in the 60s if Germany had won the war. If Germany had won World War II. Absolutely fascinating. And it gives you this feel of what it would be like to live under a very extreme authoritarianism. You would not want that. You would want to prevent the authoritarians from coming to power. What a magnificent book in many ways. Number 6, Seashell Surprise. Name a book, movie, or comic that looked simple but had an unexpected depth or beauty inside. I am picking a movie, Monty Python's Life of Brian, an absolutely hysterical tale of a Messiah in the biblical age of Jesus Christ. I have been told, I'm not sure how true it is, that this movie is actually rather authentic to what those biblical times may have been like or looked like, except for the scene where there's aliens in a flying saucer. We'll have to assume that was not very historical. But it is the story of Brian, who was born the same day as Jesus Christ. The first scene of this movie is the 3 wise men bringing their gifts to baby Brian and the mother who does not like myrrh. And as the 3 wise men are leaving, they look across the field and see a different manger with a different newborn babe. This manger is glowing with inner light. The wise men go steal those gifts or take back their gifts from Brian and head off. The scene then changes over to when Brian is an adult, somewhere in his 30s, and he is mistaken for a Messiah. He is not the Messiah. He is a very naughty boy. But this is where it gets really interesting and why I think this comedy does have some unexpected depth. Why do people want to follow a Messiah? Why do they think one human being is elevated above the rest? That somehow that person is touched by some inner spirit or some great person in the sky, and that person is above all others. They are a Messiah to lead people out of the troubled times. Why do people believe that? Well, this movie shows that it's very easy to start following a false Messiah. And I think that's a lesson that people in modern day America and other parts of the world should really sit down and think about. Why do people start following messiahs or demigods in our modern age? It is something in the human spirit that I cannot explain, but some people want to look upon another person as a leader, as a demagogue, even as a messiah. And maybe we should not be doing that as a species. We should look at each other as just people who have roles to play, whatever that is. A person is not a messiah. And of course, Brian in this movie was not a messiah. That is why I think this has inner depth to an absolutely hilarious comedy. At the end of Scott's video, he asked a bonus question, not an official prompt. He asked, "What is your favorite beach location?" And I do have a favorite beach location. That is the Baja Principe Resort in Acamal, Mexico. It is a very large, expansive, and beautiful resort right on the Gulf Coast of Mexico, known as the Mexican Riviera. It is actually 5 resorts in one, but they have golf courses that can tootle you around to different resorts, different restaurants, different pools, different beaches. It is absolutely a stunning place to take a week off from a hectic work life. I have been there 3 times, maybe it's been 4 times. I love going back there because you can go to the beach. Now, my wife and I pick the adults only section in the resort, so there are no screaming children to distract you from your book or your reading or whatever you want to do in this resort. But if you want a good vacation on a Mexican beach, the Baja Principe in Acamal, Mexico is fabulous. It's also an all-inclusive resort. You do not have to pay for your meals or your alcohol. Yeah, you do pay for them up front, but you don't have to pay for it every time you order a cerveza or a tequila. And I like that. I like sitting at the beach and ordering a cerveza during the day, ordering some more cervezas at dinner time, and every dinner I finished off with a tequila, sometimes more than one tequila. And if you ask the right waiter and say, what is the most authentic, best Mexican tequila, they will sometimes, not always, bring out the good tequila. Sometimes you get the cheap tequila, but if you butter up that waiter, say how much you like Mexico, how much you'd appreciate authentic Mexican tequila, you just might get the good stuff. And I like the good tequila. I usually have to walk it off in the resort and not take the golf course that are tootling around, take you places. Just walk it off, feel the wonderful Mexican breeze coming off the ocean. It's a great place to go. And now to tag a few people. I was tagged by Bad Is Rad for this video, and I will tag 3 other people in return. I will tag MJ at Reading This Life. I know she goes to the beach, at least occasionally. I will tag Pat at Book Chat with Pat. I don't know if Pat goes to the beach. And I will tag Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. I don't think he gets to the beach too often, but I think he would enjoy it if he got there. And he might read a book or 2 at the beach. Anyway, thank you for watching, and keep on reading books on the beach or off the beach.